Hello everyone, welcome to the Mercury Virtual. Hope you are doing good. Today I'm going to continue with your same module, with your new module that is object oriented programming and this is the new module. In the last class we have finished with the last module, that is the last module is business skills for e-commerce. Today is a new class, new module, new session. So let's hope you enjoyed this session, you enjoyed this module, because this is a practical approach, or this is a practical module in which we have studied what is C++, because we have already studied what is C language, that is known as the procedural programming language. Now this is C++, that is also known as object oriented programming. So in your course nothing is mentioned, like procedural is mentioned only, that is a C. Object oriented programming is mentioned, that is only C++. So let's start with the C++. Let's start with the object oriented programming. So first of all, let's start with what is object oriented programming, then move to the C++. So today only talk about the object oriented programming, not going to the C++. Only what is object oriented programming and what are the object oriented programming that is dealing with the system analysis, that dealing with the system, or that most of the developers are using that one. So let's start with the object oriented programming. So this is your PDF that I will share with you. This is the object-oriented programming. This is the front page of object-oriented programming with C++. So I've already told you there are so many object-oriented programming language, but the best language, the first language that is the first step, that is the first letter that you use with the object-oriented programming is the C++. That's why this book name is Object-Oriented Programming with C++. We have studied C. Now it is an C++. That means advanced part of the C++. But there is a major difference between C and the C++. Why? Because C is a procedural programming and C++ is a object-oriented programming. In this chapter today only we will study what is the main difference between the procedural programming and the object-oriented programming. So let's start. This is the front page. This is the author name. What is the author name? That is the E. Balaguru Swami. So this is the author name, that is the E. Balaguru Swami. Right. Now next page, that is what is the web resource. Talk about the that one, that is a book. That is what is the book, what is the page, how to use a link, or what is the realization name. That is not your concern. So this is also the front page, that is object oriented programming with C++. This is about the author. Who is the author? That is the Anna University former vice chancellor, that is from Chennai, and now it is a currently member of the Union Public Commission, New Delhi, that is in India. He is a teacher, trainer and consultant in the field of IT. He holds an ME honors in electrical engineering and a PhD in system engineering from the Indian Institute of Technology, Roorkee. So he is a person that wrote this book. His qualification is PhD and the ME honors. A prolific writer has write also programming in C Sharp. That is also advanced part of the C++, then Java. Then this is C that we have studied. That is basic, then numerical reading and reliability programming. So this is the book, that is the 4th edition. This is only the book, that is the price of the book. Now this is the main concept. These are the various content that is covered in this book. That is, first chapter is principles of object oriented programming. As I told you, today I will discuss only the concept, only the principles of object oriented. So first chapter is the principles of object oriented programming. Then beginning with C++. So this is the first concept, that is how to use the object oriented programming, or what is object oriented programming, what are the principles, what are the functions that is used in object oriented programming. The next chapter is beginning with C++. As I told you, one of the best example of object oriented programming is C++. So beginning with C++ means what is C++, what are the application areas of C++, simple programs of C++ that like we have studied in the C language. Then tokens, expressions and control structures. The control structures are same, like looping are same, benefits are same, switch statements are same, like if, then, else, then switch case, everything is same. Identifiers is same, data types are same but not exactly same, but some are different. So this is the third chapter. Then what is a function in C++? As we have studied a function in C, in the same way there is a function in C++. Then classes and objects, that is what is a class in C++, what is the object in C++. Then constructors and destructures, that is what is constructor and what is destructor in C++. Then operator overloading and type conversion, that is what is operator overloading and what is type conversion. Then inheritance, that is what is inheritance, that is used in the C++. Then pointers, that is almost the same that we have studied in C language. Then virtual functions and the polymorphism. So there are new concepts or more new concepts, but few concepts, that is common concepts are similar, that is similar to the C programming, that is a procedural programming. Then managing console input output operations. Then working with files, that is what is a file, how files will be used in the same way that we have studied in the procedural programming, that is a C language. Then templates in C++, exceptional handling in C++. Then introduction to the standard template library, that is a 14th chapter, that is what is template and how to use the standard template libraries. Then manipulating strings, that is how to manipulate the strings. Then new features of ANSI C++ standard, that is what are the new features of C++ standards. Then object-oriented systems development, and these are the various appendix. So let's start with the first chapter, that is principles of object-oriented programming. That means what are the various principles that is used with object-oriented programming. So first is software crisis. This says what is the software crisis means there is a demand for the more software, there will be lacking of the software in the market, that is a software crisis. So this says development in the software technology. Today I'm taking your class slowly because this is a today's class. So first of all make the base and then increase the speed so that your course will also complete and you understand also well. In this the same practicals are followed like we did in the C programming using Turbo C. In the same way we have we will make programs in C++ also. So what is software crisis? So this says developments in software technology continue to be dynamic. That is whatever development is taken place in software technology, that is continue to be dynamic. New tools and techniques are announced in quick suggestions. That is new tools and techniques are announced with a quick margins, with a quick suggestions. This has forced the software engineer and industry to continuously look for new approaches to software design and development, and they are becoming more and more critical in the view of increasing complexity of software systems as well as the highly competitive nature of the industry. That is this has force means whenever there is a dynamic nature, whenever there is a dynamic movement of the development of the software technology, that is everything is changed, so there is a new concept or there is a new demand for the new technology to the software design and development, so that the software will be designed in a proper manner. So there will be a demand for the new software designs and development, and they are becoming more and more critical in the view of increasing complexity of software system. That is there will be a great demand for increasing the software systems as well as the highly competitive nature of the industry. These rapid advances appears to have created a situation of crisis within the industry. That is because there are no more resources, or there is a rapid advancement, that is a rapid, or there will be a rapid demand, or there will be advanced demand for the software. So that creates a software crisis. That means software are lacking in the industry, software lacking in the market. So what are the following issues that is that is facing while there is a software crisis? So when there is a software crisis, following issues are addressed. That is, first is how to represent real time or real life entities of problem in system design. That is how to represent means how to denote real time problem, that is a current or the daily to daily life, that is a certain problem, that is a real life entities of problem in a system design. How to design system with open interfaces. Open interfaces in the sense that is common to everyone, that is used by the user. There is no limitation that only the authorized user will use it. No, but any user can use it. So how to design systems with open interfaces. Then how to ensure reusability and the extensibility of modules, that is how to reuse the modules, that is if I have created one program, that is how to reuse that program, that module again and again. And the extensibility means how to extend, that is how to increase or how to update or how to append the program, that is adding on the subject at the end of the module. Then how to develop modules that are tolerant to any changes in the future. That is how to develop the module that is available, that is if I think that if there is any change in the future, that is how to develop the module so that the changes will be accepted in the module. Then how to improve the software productivity and decrease software cost. That is, this is the next question that also arises whenever there is a software crisis. So that is how to improve software productivity. That is, if I want to increase the software quality, software productivity, that is how to improve if there is a software crisis, lacking of software, and decrease the software cost. Then how to improve the quality of software. That is, how to improve the quality means how to improve the quality of software so that software will be of good quality and it is used by many organizations. There will be a more demand for the software. Then how to manage time schedules. That is, how to manage time schedule means how to manage the time, that is there is a time management of the modules. Then how to industrialize the software development process. Many software products are either not finished, not used, or else are delivered with the major errors. That is, most of the products are either not finished, not used, or else are delivered with the major error. Figure 1.1. This is the figure that shows the effects of the US defense software projects that is undertaken in the 1970s. Around 50% of the software products were never delivered, and one third of those were delivered were never used. So this is the figure, this is the histogram that shows how it is, how there will be a software crisis in the world, in the India, in the market that is used or that becomes a critical issue for a developer, for a programmer, for a manufacturer. So these are the various issues. That is a project value. This is first, that is a paid for but not received. That is, we have already paid the amount but cannot receive the amount. Then delivered but not used. That is, we have delivered the product but not used. Then abandonment of rework. That is how to rework. Then use after change. That is how to use after the change. If there is any changes, so how to use them. Then use as delivered. That is how to use them as a delivered product. That is a state of US defense projects. That is what is the state of US defense project or how to use the US defense product. This is according to the US government. Now, next paragraph says changes in the user requirements have always been a major problem. So whenever any change in the software crisis, that is a major problem in the or that is a major problem for any user, for developer, for programmer, anyone. Another study shows, that is the figure 1.2, that 50% of the system required modification due to changes in the user requirements and the data formats. Suppose one user told me, or one client told me that I have to build up software for that or for them. So I built the software, but suddenly after 1 month, he or she changes his or her requirements. Then how I cope up with my software? Because I have already made some part of the software because 1 month is over. So that is there is updation, there is a changes in the user requirement and the formats of the data. That is also very irritating, and that is also very bad effect that is used whenever there is a software crisis. So that also becomes, or that also becomes a factor for the software crisis. It not only illustrates that in a changing world with a dynamic business environment, requests for change are unavoidable, and therefore system must be acceptable and tolerant to changes. So in a changing world with a dynamic business requirement, requests for change, that is how to request, are unavoidable, and therefore system must be acceptable, system must be used and tolerate to changes. These studies and other reports on software implementation suggest that software products should be evaluated carefully for their quality before they delivered and implemented. That is, so after reviewing this one, there will be a reported, or there will be a carefully succeeded, that evaluated that carefully for their quality before they are delivered and implemented. That is how to use software product, how to use them so that their quality will be maintained, so that they are delivered and implemented. Some of the quality issues that must be considered for critical evaluation are. So what are the various quality issues that must be considered, that must be taken care of for the critical evaluation are? So what are the various issues that must be considered? First is correctness, then maintainability, then reusability. So not only that, only building the product is very good, no, but correct them. That is, correctness is also very good. That is also one of the major part of the critical evaluation. Then maintainability, that is how to maintain the product, how to maintain that. That is the maintainability. Then reusability, that is how to reuse them. That is the next concept. Then openness and interoperability, that is how to open and how to interoperate with the basic concept, that is interoperability. Then portability, that the software that is built, that is portable in nature, so that the we can run the software on any platform, or we can move the software from one part to, or from one place to another place. That is a portability. Then security, that is the data is secure, or the software is secure, so that it is not hacked by anyone. So that is the security. Then integrity, that is software must be integrated, must be analyzed, must be authorized with someone. That is a security integrity. Then user friendliness, that is the software must be user friendliness, that is according to the demand of the user, it is user friendliness, so that user can easily use. There are drag and drop facilities, so that the user can access them very easily. So that is also the concept, that is the user friendliness. So selection and use of, so these are the various these are the various factors that, or these are the various quality issues that must be considered for the critical evaluation. So these are the factors that shows whether the software product that is developed is correct or not. So this is the these are the point that is used for the evaluation of the software product. That is how to evaluate the software product. So what are the various issues, what are the various quality issues that must be considered for the critical evaluation? First is correctness, then maintainability, then reusability, openness, interoperability, then portability, security, integrity, user friendliness. So these are the 8 major issues that must be considered while evaluating the software. Selection and use of proper software tool would help resolving some of these issues. That is, if there is a proper software tools, or if there is a proper maintenance, that will resolve these issues. Next, this is a chart for the breakdown cost. That is the hardware changes. There is a cost of 6.2. Emergency fixes, routine backup, debugging, changing the user requirement. So the majority that affects the software, that makes the software crisis, if the change in the users requirement, that is of 42%. That is a major area, that is a major bulk where the there will be a lacking of the software product. So that is of 42% around, that is 41.9. Right. So let's see, next chapter is, or the sorry, next topic is software evaluation. That is how to use the software, or how to build the software, or what are the various stages of the software. That is how to step by step build the software. That is software evaluation. So this is Ernest Yellow, a well-known writer, is known as, is known in the field of artificial intelligence. That is, it is one of the writer for the artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence is also one of the subject that is used for making the intelligent product that is of artificial in nature, that compared the evaluation of software technology to the growth of a tree. So this writer this writer compares the growth of the software, growth of a software that is developed, to a tree. That is, like a tree, software is evolved, or software is developed, or software is growing from day one to the when it becomes the tree. That is, a small tree becomes a big tree after making the various changes, after going through the various stages. So this says, like a tree, the software evaluation has different distinct phases or layers. That is, there are multiple layers that is used by the different layers that is used by the different growth. These layers are built one by one over the last 5 decades. That is, these layers are built one by one. That is, software will be built, or there will be a development in the software from time to time. That is step by step, from layer to layer, from level to level. Next, figure 1.3. Now we will see what is figure 1.3. That shows what is the improvement of software. That is how the software will build, or how any software, or what is the evaluation of software. That is how software will build from the part to part, from level to level. That is from top, or from top to the bottom. That is one step, next step, next step, next step. That is how to build the various products. That is each layer represents an improvement over the previous one. That is every layer, or every layer represents the increment, represents the evaluation, represents the improvement than the previous one. However, the analogy fails if we consider the life of these layers. In software systems, each of the layers continues to be functional. That is, in a software system that is used, each of the layer that is used, or that is continued to be functional, whereas in the case of trees, only the uppermost layer is functional. This is the difference. In the software, every part is functional, whether it may be a top level, whether it may be a bottom level. But in a tree, only the top level, or only the uppermost layer is a functional. Alan Kay, one of the promoters of the object-oriented paradigm and the principal designer, said, and as complexity increases, as there will be a complexion or complexity in the software, or some complexity increases, architecture dominates the basic material. To use or to build today's complex software, it is just not enough to put together a sequence of programming statements. That is, it is not just that if I collect multiple programs, if I collect multiple instructions, that makes the software. No, that is not an issue. And a set of procedures and modules. We need to incorporate sound construction technique and program structures that are easy to comprehend, implement, and modify. So it is not that just that software is just a collection of the various program and putting the one together, or put it at the one place and incorporate various techniques. No, but it is very different. That is how to use construction techniques, how to use the program structures that are easy to comprehend, implement, and modify. Since the invention of the computer, many programming approaches have been tried. This include techniques such as modular programming, top-down programming, bottom-up programming, and structured programming. So these are the various programming modules, that is figure 1.3, that is where various layers of the software or computer software. That is what is the evaluation of the software, that is how software grows, or how software is built from the layer to layer, that is the layers of the computer software. So one is the modular programming, then top-down programming, then bottom-up programming, and the structure-up programming. The primary motivation in each has been the concern to handle the increasing complexity of the programs that are reliable and maintainable. These techniques have become popular among programmers over the last 2 decades. That is, various techniques are used, that is like modular programming, top-down programming, bottom-up programming, and the structure programming. So these are the various techniques that is used over the last 2 decades, by the programmers. So first is, these are the various layers. First of all, there is a machine language. Please, this is very important. Try to understand. If there is any doubts, you can stop right now, and I will clear again. So first is machine language. That is, machine language is binary language. As I told you from the beginning, that computer understand only binary language, and binary language is also known as the machine language. So any language in which the program is written in the zeros and ones form, that is known as the machine language. So the first layer is machine language, that is a 0 and 1. That is a machine language. Then after the machine language, there will be assembly language. So after using, or after the machine language, that next programming language is assembly language. And after assembly language, there will be a next language that is known as the procedure oriented language. And after procedure oriented language, there will be a next language that is known as the object oriented programming language. So these are the four layers of the computer software. One is machine language, then assembly language, then procedure oriented language, then object oriented language. Machine language, we know that is whenever we represent the data, whenever the computer represents the data in zeros and ones, that is in bits form, that is known as the machine language. That is every program we are using that is represented in the bits form, that is represented in the zeros and one form, that is known as the machine language. Next, assembly language. In this we use various mnemonics. For example, if I want to perform the addition of two numbers, then I use the mnemonics add, ADD add. If I want to use, or if I want to multiply two numbers, then I have to use the mnemonics, that is a MUL, that is in capital letters. So which word is used or which keyword is used, that is a mnemonics. The spelling is MNEMONICS. There is a starting character, that is a M, but that is silent. So this is known as the mnemonics, right? So assembly language is a language that is used by the programmers to develop the programs with the help of the mnemonics. But after developing the program, whenever we compile the program, so first of all, that program must be converted into the machine level language. Then it only executes by the program, because as I told you, computer only understands zeros and ones. So there are multiple tools, there are multiple compilers, there are multiple software tools that is used to develop the, or that is used to convert the program into the machine language, so that the program will be developed in an easiest way, so that the CPU will compile, CPU will execute easily, and give the accurate results. So first is machine language, then assembly language, write the programs with the use of mnemonics, and then, yeah, just a minute, Larry. Then after writing the programs, that programs will be converted into machine language, so that the computer will understand the machine language by using the assembler. So assembler is a concept, or assembler is a software tool that is used to convert assembly language program into the machine language program. I'm repeating again. Assembler is a software tool that is used to convert assembly language into the, or assembly language program into the machine level language program, so that it is easily understood, it is easily carried out by the computer, so that it is easily executed by the computer. So we have finished with machine, we have finished with assembly. Now, Larry question is, what is the spelling of mnemonics? I will write the spelling of mnemonics, that is MNEMONICX, that is a mnemonics. Now, after assembly, there is a next language that is known as the procedure oriented language. We have already studied about the procedure oriented language, that is the C language. In this, there are different modules, that is the same program is divided into different modules, different functions. We have studied the functions in C language. That is, function is what? That is a part of the program, that is a sub part of the program. So in procedure oriented, the main program is divided into various functions, into various programs. Then after procedure programming language, that is a C language, there is a next language that is known as the object oriented language. That is a main topic that is that I am starting right now, or I have already started for this module. That is your module, that is the object oriented programming. So first is machine level language, then assembly language, then machine level language, then object oriented programming language. So these are the four languages that is used, that becomes the layer of a computer software. So this says, with the advent of languages such as C, structured programming became very popular and was the main technique of the 1980s. Structured programming was powerful tool. So this is the structured programming, that is like C, was a powerful tool that enables programmer to write moderately complex program very easily. That's why I said, whenever I approach to, or whenever I studied you, or whenever I teach you about the C language, so I told you that that is a basic language, that is a mother language, mother programming language for all the programming languages. So this makes the program very easy. However, as the program grows larger, that is, as the program grows larger means as the program becomes larger, even the structured approach failed to show the desired result in the terms of bug-free, easy to maintain and reusable programs. That is, when the program becomes larger or when the program become higher, that is if there is a program length is becomes higher, or that is more and more programs, more and more instructions are followed. So if I'm using the object oriented procedure oriented programming, that is the C language, so it becomes the program very easy and very understandable, and it is free from any errors. We have already studied the advantages of C, that is it is user friendly first of all, and then it is also used for the various layers, and it also makes the program very easy, and there will be a less errors, that is a less bugs, right? Then next is object oriented programming approach. So now let's start our main approach, that is our main book name, that is the object oriented programming, that is OOP. So that's object-oriented programming is the approach to program organization and development. So this is an approach that is used for the program organization, that is how to organize the program and how to develop the programs, that attempts to eliminate some of the pitfalls of conventional programming methods or methods. That is, there are some limitations of C language, that is a procedure programming language, that is a third layer programming language. So that limitations will be eliminated by the object oriented language. So there are some limitations of C language, that limitations are removed by the object oriented programming language by incorporating the best of structured programming features with several powerful new concepts. It is a new way of organizing and developing programs and has nothing to do with any particular language. So it is a new way of organizing and developing the programs. New way means a new methods, new techniques are used to develop the programs and has nothing to do with any particular language. However, not all languages are suitable to implement the object-oriented programming concepts easily. That is, all the languages are not able to support the object-oriented concepts, so that the program will become easier and easy to incorporate, as well as the easy to access by the user. Now, uh, next is a look at the procedure-oriented programming. That is, what is procedure-oriented programming? That is, what is the procedural programming? This is conventional programming uses high-level languages such as COBOL, Fortran, and C. That is commonly known as the procedure-oriented programming. As I told you, there are multiple procedure programming languages. These are the various examples like COBOL, Fortran, and C. These are the various conventional programming languages, and this is known as the procedure-oriented programming. That is a POP. In the procedure-oriented programming approach, the problem is viewed as a sequence of things to be done, such as reading, calculating, and printing. So what is the meaning? That is, it is viewed as a sequence of things. Viewed means it is see, or it can see, or we can see as a sequence of things to be done, such as reading, calculating, and printing. A number of functions are written to accomplish this task or these tasks. That is, large numbers of functions are written for formulating the or for using the procedure oriented programming. The primary focus is on function. That is, what is the primary focus of the of object oriented programming? That is on the function. That is, every module or every program is divided into various modules. That is, the primary focus is on functions. A typical program structure for procedure programming is shown in 1.4. The technique of hierarchical decomposition has been used to specify the task to be completed for solving a problem. What is the technique that is used? That is used for the hierarchical decomposition. That is how to decompose a program or how to divide the main programs into multiple modules. That is the main concept. That is a procedure-oriented programming. So dividing the main module into or dividing the main program into various modules, so that there will be easy to debug the module, easy to understand the module. But there are some loopholes in this procedure oriented programming. That loopholes are eliminated or are removed by the new concept, new programming that is known as the object-oriented programming. Now, this is the figure that shows how the procedure programming works. As I told you, the main program is divided into various modules, various functions. So this is the main program that is divided into function 1, function 2, function 3. Now, function 1 and the function 2, that is function 1 is also divided into function 4, function 2 is also divided into function 4. In the same way, function 2 is divided into function 5, function 2 is also divided into function 7, and the function 3 is divided into function 5. So there is no criteria that one function is divided into two parts. No, one function cannot divide, or it may be divided into one part, it may be divided into two parts, it may be divided into three parts, like function 2 that is divided into three parts, function 4, function 5, function 7. But function 1 is only divided into one part. So it depends on the requirement of the program, it depends on the requirement of the user, whether the function is divided into multiple parts, single part, or more than one part. Right, so this is the main program, this is the main structure, this is the hierarchical decomposition of the structure. That is the typical structure of procedure-oriented programs. Then procedure-oriented programming basically consists of writing a list of instructions for the computer to follow. So procedure-oriented programming consists of writing a list of instructions. Writing a list of instructions means writing a number of instructions or actions for the computer to follow and organizing these instructions into groups. So it consists of writing number of instructions, number of programs that the computer follow and organize these instructions into various groups. That is, organize these instructions means compile these instructions, gather or collect these instructions, that is few instructions, and combine into one function, combine into one module. In the same way, different functions are generated, different instructions are combined into various functions. We normally use a flowchart to organize these actions and represents the flow of control from one action to another action. So we generally use a flowchart to organize these actions or to organize these concepts and represents the flow of control from one action to another action. While we concentrate on the development of functions and very little attention is given to the data that are being used by the various functions. What happens to the data? That is, what happens to the data, what is the requirement of the data, how we are using the functions, how are they affected in a function or by the function that work on them. So these are the various questions that is given, that is why the main program is divided into various functions. What is the main advantage of using functions? So in a multi-function program, many important data that is replaced or that is used as a global, so that they can be accessed or they may be accessed by all the functions. Each function may have its own local data. That is, every function may have its own local data. Figure 1.5 shows the relationship of data and functions in a procedure-oriented programming or procedure-oriented program. That is figure 1.5. That shows that how the data will be divided into multiple parts. As I told you, there is a global data, that is divided into function 1, that is a local data. So global data that can be accessed by any function, by anything that is used, or that is by any person, or by any variable that is used in the program. But local variables are used only in the block in which it can specify. If I specify the local data within one block, that will be accessed by within that block, within that area only. That is this is the figure that shows what is the relationship between the data and functions in the procedure programming. So this says procedure-oriented programming basically consists of writing a list of instructions by using flowchart. This is done. Global data are more vulnerable to an inherent change by a function. That is, global data is generally changed, or these are the more effective stage of changes by the function. In a large program, it is very difficult to identify what data is used by which function. That is, in a large program, it is very difficult to identify what is the local data and what is the global data. In case we need to revise an external data structure, that is, we need to revise all functions that access the data. This provides an opportunity for the bugs, for the errors to creep in. This is one of the major drawback that we have to deal with the various global data for using the functions in a correct manner. Another serious drawback is that another loophole is that with the procedure programming approach is that it does not model real world problem very well. That is, it does not choose real world problem. That is, it is not suitable. That is, a C language is not suitable for the real time applications or the real life applications. That is, real life application means that is the online applications. That is the real world problems. This is because functions are action oriented. Why? Uh, Whenever there is a function, whenever there is a command, then only the function will fire. That is, the functions are action oriented and they do not really respond to the elements of the problem. That is, they do not respond, they do not get the problems, or they do not get the respond to the elements of the problem, because they are action oriented. They are not responding anything, or there is no response to the elements of the problem. So there is a global data, function 1, function 2, function 3. This is the relationship. So some characteristics are exhibited by the procedure oriented programming. That are, what are the various exhibited, or what are the various features that is exhibited, that is not used by the procedure programming language. So that is used by the procedure oriented programming. These are the features of procedure oriented programming. First of all, in procedure oriented programming, the main emphasis is on doing things. That is, the main focus is on how to do the things, not taking into consideration the real life problems. No, but only the main concern is that how to do the things. That is, emphasis is on doing things. That is done with the use of algorithms. Then next point says large programs are divided into smaller programs that are known as functions. That is, a large program, it is divided into various sub-programs, into smaller programs that are known as the functions. The main programs is divided into multiple parts, that is known as the functions. Then next, most of the functions share global data. That is, most of the function that is written in the programming or procedure programming language, that is in C, most of the programs or most of the functions uses the global data. As I told you, in C language there will be a more usage of the global data, so that it can be accessed by any variable, by any function at any time. So most of the functions share the global data. Then data moves openly around the system from function to function. That is, we can simply pass the data from one function to another function to another. So we can simply, or we can openly pass the data, or around the data, or around the system from function to function. Then functions transform data from one part to another part. That is, there will be also transformation of data from one form to another form, from one part to another part. Then employs top down, or this employs, that is, this procedure oriented programming employs top down approach in program design. That is, it provides the top down approach, that is from the top to bottom. So there will be a main program, that is uh, the main concept is that we have already studied the C language. So what is the approach? There will be a void main at the starting, then there will be different function. That's why it is known as the, or it follows the top down approach. Why? Because it starts from the top, that is, there will be a void main at the beginning, then there are multiple variables declaration, various member function definition, that is a functions declare. So that's why it employs the top down approach, because it starts from the beginning and moves to the down. That's why it is known as the top down approach. Why? Because void main is at the top, at the starting. So that's why the main feature is that the main characteristics of procedure oriented programming is that it employs the top down approach in program design. That is, it follows the top down approach, that is from the beginning to the end, from starting to the end. Next is object oriented programming paradigm. That is, what is object oriented programming? Till now we have covered what is procedure oriented programming. Now next is what is object oriented programming. So this says the major motivating factor in the invention of object oriented approach is to remove some of the flaws that is encountered in the procedure programming. So why there is a need of object oriented programming? One of the major motivating factor, one of the major factor, that is how to, or why we are using the object oriented programming, is to remove the loopholes, is to remove the errors, is to remove the drawbacks of the procedural programming language or the procedural approach. OOP, that is the object-oriented programming, treats the data as a critical element in a program development and does not allow it to freely or flow freely around the system. But in C language, we simply, or the programmer simply, or any person can simply pass the data from function to function. That is also the loophole. But when we use the object-oriented programming, the data will not flow or data will not freely flow from one function to another, from one part to another part. Right? It ties data, that is, it means the double OP, that is the object-oriented programming, ties the data more closely to the function they operate on it and protect it from accidental modifications from outside functions. That is, the data will be secure, it cannot be accessed by anyone else, so there will be no modification, or it protect it from accidental modification from outside functions. Object-oriented programming allows decomposition of a problem into number of entities. That is, object-oriented programming, that is OOP, also allows decomposition, that is breakdown of a problem into number of entities, that is breakdown of a problem into number of parts, that is known as the objects, and then builds the data and functions around these objects. So in C language, there will be a division of the main program into various functions. But in C++, that is in object-oriented programming, the main program is divided into various objects, that is various entities, that is known as the objects, and then builds data and functions around these objects. The organization of data and functions in object-oriented program is shown in figure 1.6. So how to organize the data and how to organize the various member functions, that is also available or that is shown in figure 1.6. The data of an object, that is the data that is available in object-oriented programming, can be accessed only by the functions that is associated with that object. So object is like a function, that means one pair. So whatever the data that is used by the object, the data of any object can be accessed, can be taken out only by the functions, only by the procedures that is associated with that object. However, functions of one object can access the functions of other objects. These are the two important lines. First of all, it says whatever the data of an object, that is, if in one block I have declared one data, that can be accessed only by the functions. Suppose I have declared one data, I have declared one function, right? So only the data can be fetched only by the function that is used in that block. So whatever the function that are used in that block only, that pair only that function is used for accessing the object. However, functions of one object can access the function of other objects. That is, if functions of one object, suppose I made or I declare two objects like A1 and B1, right? So I declare one function in A1, I declared one function in B1. So A1 can access the elements of A1 data members or data usage, as well as the A1 can refer the functions of A2 objects or B1 objects, not referring the another object's data. So one function can communicate with another function of same object of different objects, but if I'm talking about only one object, that can be accessed, that can be used only in a single block. That is, only the function can access the data of one object. Now, what are the various striking features of object-oriented programming? That is, what are the various features, that is the striking features of object-oriented programming? So one of the feature is it emphasizes on the data rather than the procedure. In C, that is emphasis on how to do the things, that is the algorithm. In object-oriented programming, the main focus is on the main emphasis on data rather than the procedure. That is how to use the data, but not how to use the procedure. What is the procedure? No, but how to use the data. That is emphasis is on data rather than the procedure. Right. The next point is programs are divided into what are known as objects. That is the main program, or the entire program is divided into the objects. In C, it is divided into the functions. Now in this, it is divided into various objects. So the programs are divided into what is known as the objects. Then next feature is that Data structures are designed such as they can characterize or they can facilitate or they can feature out the objects. That is, um, the data will be designed in such a manner that there will be a distribution of data, there will be a feature of data, or there will be a characterization of data or object. So data structures are designed, that is the data are designed or the structure is designed such that they characterize the object, that is they formulate the object, they define the object. Then the next point is functions that operate on the data of an object are tied together. That is, whatever the function that is used in the object are tied together, are cluttered together in the data structure. So whatever the function that is used, that is operate on the data. So if I use one function, if I use one data in an object, that is tied up or that is used by the function, that is accessed by the functions. So this says functions that operate on the data of an object are tied together in the data structure. Next point says data is hidden and cannot be accessed by the external functions. Data is hidden means data is hidden. Why? Because there are few concepts like data hiding, data abstractions. So data is hid and cannot be accessed by the external function. As I told you, only the functions that is common to the object, that is common to that block, can access them. So functions are tied together and cannot be accessed by any external functions. Then objects may communicate with each other and through functions. As I told you, different objects functions can communicate with each other. So this is one of the feature, that is a different functions object, that is the object may communicate with each other with the use of functions, with the use of member function that is declared in the objects. Then new data and functions can be easily added whenever necessary. So there is no foundation that if I declare one object, if I declare one object, so how can I use that, or whether it is possible to add the new functions and data. So it is very possible. If I declare int a, so after 5 minutes, after 10 minutes, I will declare very easily int b, int c. So adding up the data or adding up the new data and functions can be easily added whenever necessary. So we can easily add the data, we can easily add the functions whenever there is a requirement. Then next is follows bottom-up approach. In procedure-oriented programming, what does it follow? That is a top-down approach. But in object-oriented programming, that is OOP, we use, or the OOP uses or follows the bottom-up approach. That is from the bottom to top. In this, void main is declared at the low level, at the bottom. But in C programming, that is in the procedure programming, the void main is declared at the top level, that is at the higher level. But in this, so that's why that approach, that is a procedure oriented programming approach, is known as the top down approach. But this uses or this follows the bottom up. Why? The main reason is that the void main is declared at the bottom and at the lower end, that is it follows a bottom up approach in the program design, right? Now Larry, your answer is what is the difference between POP and OOP, right? So OOP means object oriented programming and POP means procedure oriented programming. So there is a difference. POP follows top down approach, OOP follows bottom up approach. Data moves freely from, or data moves freely in procedure oriented programming, and data cannot move freely in the object oriented programming. So these are the various features and these are the various differences between the POP, that is the procedure oriented programming, and the object oriented programming. So this is the example, or this is the diagram that shows how to organize the data in the object oriented programming, that is organization of data and functions in OOP. This is one object, that is object A. This is one object, that is object B. This is the data, this is also a data, this is a function, this is the functions. So one object functions can communicate or can refer the data of same object, and this function can refer the data of object B. This function refers the data of object A, this function refers the data of object B, and these functions can also communicate with each other. This is one function, this is one function. They can communicate with each other, that is a communication. So one function of object A and one function of object A also communicate with the object C. So there are three objects, object A, object B, object C. The functions of same object can refer the same data elements. The functions of same object can refer the same data elements. But the functions can also communicate with each other with the use of the or with in the object-oriented programming. So this is the best example that is given. So this says object-oriented programming is the most recent concept, that is it is the most recent programming that is used nowadays, because there are some loopholes, there are some drawbacks that is available in procedure-oriented programming. So that loopholes are removed, that loopholes are hidden or not available in object-oriented programming. So this is the most recent challenge, or this is the most recent approach concept among the programming languages. It is therefore important to have a working definition of object-oriented programming. So we define object-oriented programming as an approach that provides a way of modularizing programs by creating partitioned memory area. I'm so sorry. So it's an approach, or object-oriented programming is approach that provides a way or to modularize program, or to generate the program, or to divide the program into various by creating partitioned memory area. That means the main programs is divided into various objects, and each objects have a memory space. That is, each object takes the memory space, or each object takes a space in the memory. So by creating the partitioned memory area for both the data and the functions, that can be used as a template for creating copies of such modules on demand. Therefore, an object is considered as an partition area of computer memory. As I told you, the main program is divided into different objects, and the object can take the space in the memory area in the memory that contains data and functions, that stores the data, and the set of operations that can access the data. Since the memory partitions are interdependent or independent, since the memory partitions are independent, the object can be used in a variety of different programs without modifications. That is, object can be used in a variety of various programs, different program without modification. Now next is basic concepts of object-oriented programming. That is, what are the various concepts, what are the basic concepts that is very needy, or what are the various concepts that is used in object-oriented programming. So first of all, let's take a break because it's too much right now. So first of all, let's take a break, then move to this topic, that is, what are the basic concepts of object-oriented programming. So first of all, let's take a break. Now come back from the break. Now let's start the session again. So the next topic is basic concepts of object-oriented programming. That is, what are the basic concepts that is used, or what are the various concepts that is used in the object-oriented programming. That is the basic concepts of object-oriented programming. Right. So it is necessary to understand some of the concepts that is used extensively or extensively in an object-oriented programming. These includes objects. That is, what are the various basic concepts what are the various concepts in the object-oriented programming. First is objects, then classes, then data abstraction and encapsulation, then inheritance, then polymorphism, then dynamic binding, then message passing. So these are the various concepts that is used in object-oriented programming. So one is known as the objects, one is known as the classes, one is known as the data abstraction and encapsulation, one is inheritance, this is polymorphism, dynamic binding and the message passing. And these are all chapters, nothing else in C++. So these are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 basic concepts of object-oriented programming, and each concept have multiple chapters, single chapter. So this is the main crux of the C++, or this is whole C++, these 7 topics: objects, classes, data abstraction, encapsulation, inheritance, polymorphism, dynamic binding, message passing. So these are the 7 new topics, new concepts of object oriented, that is the main whole C++, that is the full C++, right? So we shall discuss these concepts in some detail. Some detail means not in full detail, in some detail in this section, in this area. So first is objects. What are objects? That are the basic runtime entities in an object-oriented programming. And please try to understand carefully, and if there is any doubt you can ask, you can stop at any moment of time. So objects are basic runtime entities. That is, runtime entity means that is running in a or that is running in a real life entity or in an online entity. So these are the basic runtime entities in an object oriented system. So any runtime entity that is used in the object oriented, that is known as the objects. Objects may represent a person. So object that is a runtime entity can be of person, can be of place, can be of bank account, can be of table of data, or any item that the program has to handle. That is, any program that can handle multiple objects, multiple things that can use or that is used by the programming or that is used by the various concepts. So objects are the basic runtime entities that is used by the computer, that is used by the C programming language, that is a program objects. So they may represent a person. So object may be a person, maybe a bank account, maybe a table of data, or any item that the program has to handle. So any program that has to handle, it may be a bank, it may be a program, it may be a table, it may be a bank account, place, anything that is a runtime entity, that is known as the object, right? They may also represent the user defined data types. That is, I will tell you in this chapter, that is what is user defined data type. So they may also represent, they may also defines the user defined data types such as vectors, time, and list. Programming programs or the programming problem is analyzed or is represented in terms of objects and the nature of communication between them. That is, programming problem means the object oriented programs is analyzed in terms of the objects and the nature of communication between them. That is, how to communicate between these objects. Program objects should be chosen such that they match closely with the real world objects. Objects that take up space in the memory and have associated address like a record in Pascal or a structure in C. That is, objects that is a real-time entity may take a space in the memory. As in the last topic we have also discussed that objects take a space in the memory, and the object members are data and the function. They also take the memory, they also take the space in the memory. So when the program is executed, the objects interact. That is how objects interact, that when the program is executed, compiled, the objects are interacted by sending messages to each other. So how they are interacted with each other, how different objects are interacted by sending the messages to one another. For example, if customer and accounts are two objects in a program, then the customer object may send a message to the account object requesting for the bank balance. So these are the two objects that may communicate with each other in a program. Each object contains data and the code, that is a function. Yeah, this is correct. That is, every code or every object contains data as well as the code, that is a function to manipulate the data. Objects can interact without having to know details of each other data or code. That is, they can communicate with each other without getting the knowledge, without getting the details of each other data or the code. It is insufficient to know the type of message accepted. That is, it is insufficient, or this is the insufficient detail to know the type of message accepted and the type of resource that is, or type of response that is returned by the objects. Although different authors represent them differently. That is, different authors think that they can communicate by using the messages, they can communicate using the functions. Figure 1.7 shows that two notations that are properly used in, or in a popular way it is used in object oriented analysis and design. So these are the two ways. First is object student, then there is a data. What is the data in this object? So this is the student as an object. What is the data? That is a name, then date of birth, mark. So these are the data elements, these are the data members of the object student. So there is one object, that is a student. There are various data elements, there are various data members. Then functions, that is, there are various functions in the object student, like total, average, display. So these are the three functions, or these are the three functions that is used in the object student. So one is the data members. So one part of the object is, for example, this is the object of student. One of the part of the, or one of the part, or one of the object, or one of the area is data, that contains what type of data, what is the name of the student, date of birth of the student and marks of student. Then functions, that is what are the functions that is used to operate or that is used that is using the data. So what are the various functions that is available, like total, that is total of the marks, average of the marks, and then display on the screen, that is the next function, that is display. So three data are used, or three types of data are used, like name, date of birth, and the marks, and three functions are used, like total, average, and display. And then there are, this is notation, that is there are three functions that is used. One is total, one is average, one is display, right? These are the two ways to represent an object. Now this is an object, and so in simple terms, objects are any real-time entities that is used in object-oriented programming. They contain, or the objects contain, data as well as the functions, and functions are used to operate on the data, right? And the objects may communicate with each other with the use of functions. Next is classes. That is the next concept of the object-oriented programming. This says, we just mentioned that the object contains data and the code to manipulate the data. That is, object contains the data as well as the functions to manipulate the data. The entire set of data and code of an object can be made a user-defined data type with the help of class. In fact, objects are variable of the type class. That is, objects are the variables of the type class. So class is a big entity, or class is a big entity, or the big thing as compared to the object. Or if we say that objects are contained, or class contained objects, or objects are stored in a class, right? So once a class has been defined, we can create any number of objects. So class is a wider term and the object is a narrower term. So class is a big term and object is a small term. So once a class has been defined, that once a class has been used or defined, we can create any number of objects. We can generate, or we can create any number of objects that is belonging to that class. Each object is associated with the data of type class. That is, every object that is associated with the data of type class with which they are created. A class is therefore a collection of objects of similar type. So object is therefore, or a class is therefore collection of objects of similar type. So whenever we collect the object that is of similar type, similar data type, for example, we have created 4 objects that is of int type. So when we combine multiple objects, or when we collect multiple objects that is of similar type, that is known as the class. For example, mango, apple, and orange, these are the fruits name, are a member of the class fruit. So name of the class is fruit, and there are 3 objects of that class that is known as mango, apple, and the orange. So next line is very important line. This is this line. Classes are classes are user defined data type. So what is class? Classes are user defined data type. Now what is data type? As I told you, there are multiple data types. One is inbuilt data type that we have studied in C language, like int, char, float, that are inbuilt data type. Inbuilt means that are already created by the manufacturer, that have already created by the system, that is inbuilt data type. And one of the category, next category is user defined data types, that is defined by the user. So class is a user defined data type, like a structure in C, that is user can define the data type, user can define the class according to their requirement. That is, you are a user, you can make any class, you can insert any data, you can insert any functions in the class, you can do, or you can add any objects in the class, and as per my class I can add any objects in the class. So that is the next concept, that is a classes are user defined data types and behaves like a built-in type of programming language. Although they are user defined, that is based on the user, but they behave, they reacts as a built-in types of the programming language. The syntax to create the object is not different than the syntax to create an integer object in C. That is, everything is same, the data type, the declaration is same to define the object, like a variable. Like we have declared so many variables in C language, like int A, int B, int C. So we can create any number of objects in C++ like a variable. So if fruit have been defined as a class, then the statement fruit mango will create a object mango that is belonging to the class fruit. That is, fruit is the name of the class and mango is the data type, and mango is the sorry, fruit is the name of the class and objects that are created is a mango. So fruit is like a data type, that is a class type, user defined data type, and mango is like a object, like a variable, right? Now, the next concept is data abstraction and encapsulation. So we have finished with two concepts. One is class, one is object. Now the next is data abstraction and encapsulation. That is, what is data abstraction and what is encapsulation. So the wrapping of data and functions into a single unit, that is class, is known as encapsulation. So whenever we wrap, that is, wrapping means wrap, like there is a wrapper of the orange, there is a wrapper of the chocolate, and any wrapping, that is a cover. So the wrapping of data and functions into a single unit. So whenever there is a wrapping of the member functions, whenever there is a wrapping of the data members, that is into a single unit, that is known as the class, or into a single unit, that is known as class. And whenever there is a wrapping, that concept is known as encapsulation. So whenever we bind, we as a user, because class is a user defined data type, so we as a user binds the data into a class, into a single unit, that is known as encapsulation. So the wrapping up of data and functions into a single unit, that is a class, that is known as the encapsulation. And this is one of the important feature, one of the striking feature of a class, that is data encapsulation. And what is a striking feature means? One of the important feature of the class. The data is not accessible to the outside world. That is, if the data is contained, if the data is stored in a class, data is stored in an object, so no one can access them without the permission of a class member, without the permission of a class function. So the data is not accessible to the outside world, and only those functions which are wrapped in the class can access it. That is, only the members, only the member functions, only the data member functions are used or access the data that is used or that is wrapped in the class. These functions provides the interface between the object's data and the program. This insulation of the data from direct access by the program. That is, there is no direct access, so the insulation means that is a reflection, that is a difference of the data from direct access by the program. That is, directly the data will not accessible, that is known as the data hiding or information hiding. So whenever there is a collection of data, whenever there is a data hiding, information hiding, that is, apart from data there is another concept. So hiding the data is known as the data hiding. Now, abstraction refers to the act of representing essential features without including the background details or explanation. So what is the meaning of data abstraction? That means representing the essential features, that is, only represent the essential features, the main features, without including the background details or explanation. So without giving any detail, without giving any explanation, only showing the important information that is relevant to the user. So displays only those information that is relevant to the user without giving the background details, that is known as the abstraction. Classes using the concept of abstraction and are defined as a list of abstract attributes such as size, weight, cost. So as I told you, class is what contains data as well as the functions. So classes uses the concept of abstraction, that means the data will be abstracted or the data will be collected in a one place, and there are various attributes like size, weight, cost. So these are the various attributes, these are the various concepts that is defined in a class, and the functions, that is, the functions to operate on these attributes. They encapsulate all essential properties of the objects that are to be created. So encapsulate means binding the various features, binding the various properties of the object that are to be created. The attributes are sometimes known as the data members. As I told you, whatever it contains, the data members or the attributes, that is a variable declaration because they hold the information. The functions that operate on these data. So whatever the function that is used that operates on these data are known as the methods or the member functions. So the function that is used, that is works on the data, that works on the data member, that works on the members data, that is known as the member functions. So that means class is a combination of data, that is the data members and the functions, and that binding is known as the data abstraction or encapsulation. Since classes uses the concept of data abstraction, they are known as ADT, that is the abstract data type. Now next is inheritance. I'm not going to start right now because this is important concept, and Larry, you are the single person in the class, so this is the new concept, new topic, so how do I start without students? I don't know why students are not attending the class. This is practical approach, this is so interesting class. So Larry, if you have any contact with anyone, so you can call them, you can tell them that there is a practical approach, that is the object oriented programming module have been started, so you please attend the classes. So I think I have to finish this class right now. Let's hope whether the students will come tomorrow. If you inform Larry, if you inform others. So if there is any doubt, Larry, you can ask the doubts. Please clear the doubts so that your concepts are clear from the starting of the module. And I'm not going to continue with the today's session. So let's stop over here only. In the tomorrow's class, I'm going to continue with the same session, same module, and the same concept, next concept, that is the inheritance. Today we are finished with three concepts or four concepts. One is objects, one is classes, one is data abstraction, one is encapsulation. So we are finished with four concepts. We are finished with four basic concepts of procedure oriented language. What about the guide on how to attempt our assessment? Yeah, first of all, assessment will be given to you, and you can refer the assessment, you can refer the assignment. Yeah, I will send immediately right now. So first of all, talking about the assignment. So first of all, I will send you the assignment latest by tomorrow. Then please brief the assignments in the weekend, that is in Saturday or Sunday till Monday. Then if on Monday I will discuss, or Monday or Tuesday I will discuss. I'm not taking full day lecture, that is 2 hours lecture. I'm taking only 1 hour lecture, and 1 hour is devoted to the assignment, so that your concepts are clear, how to do the assignment, what is the criteria of the assignment. So that is the main answer, that is the main concern. And I will share this module right now.